how are you doing? Welcome to R0asting. If this is your first time of coming across this channel, sweetheart, kindly smash that subscribe button, turn on the notification so you are notified each time I upload, and please give this video a thumb up. I appreciate you all so much, and I am saying a very big shout out to every one of you for all the love and support you all give me here. I am truly grateful. Thank you all so much. I really don't know how I found this video, but man, I am bringing it to you all here because I don't know how people will sit down and think of, all they want to think of is just evil, or how to harm people, or how to make people not to prosper, because it's only an evil person that can sit down and think of something like this and conceive it, right? And it's about this white woman, opening up about us. She spilled the tea about how white people do not want to, what they do in order not to sell their houses to black people. They all come together, probably the landlord association and all that come together and sign a deed that we are not selling our houses to black people, right? If you ever go against that rule, they're probably going to sue you or something like that. And she also went further to explain why, they pushed liquor in black community and some prostitute houses and all that, clubs and all that, why they pushed all that to black people's community. She mentioned so many things, and I am like, how do people sit back? You sit back and all you think of is evil, because it's only an evil person can sit down and think of evil for another person. Man, something like this is really, I don't know, but it's kind of scary. Very scary. You know what? I am just going to roll this clip. We'll come back to talk about it. I absolutely want to read all your comments. Let me know what you all think in the comment section. And straight up, I am rolling the clip.
So increasingly, entire neighborhoods would come together and enter into private contracts saying that they would never ever sell their houses to black people. That way, all the neighbors who signed on to the contract then had the right to sue if any other neighbor turned around and sold their home to a black person. And they would create the contracts to run with the land, as they say in the biz, meaning that it was binding to the property and to subsequent owners of the property, meaning these racially restrictive agreements were then taken on by subsequent buyers of the same property. This is also the reason why homeowners associations were created, to restrict blacks from entire subdivisions. So there's a fun fact to bring up at your racist Great Aunt's barbecue next week. And this practice was pervasive in virtually every major city and suburb in the United States for the first half of the 20th century. And these restrictive covenants were upheld again and again by courts across the country as perfectly constitutional, because they were private agreements between private parties, not state action against a certain race. And despite the fact that it was acknowledged that government-sanctioned and enforced housing restrictions would be unconstitutional, the government continued to restrict access to housing for black Americans, especially via the FHA. The Federal Housing Administration was created in 1934 in response to the Great Depression to allow the U.S. government to help fund the purchase of housing, thus creating desperately needed construction jobs and helping people who had been flattened by the Depression get back on their feet and purchase property. The way the FHA worked is by using government funds to ensure private bank mortgages that covered 80% of purchase prices and had terms of 20 years. Because the FHA is the one insuring the mortgage on the house, the FHA then insisted on doing its own appraisal of the property to make sure that the loan had a low risk of default. That's what insurers do. They see whether the risk is high or low, and they prefer to insure lower risk things because then they get to keep their money. And what was in the handbooks and manuals for all FHA insurance appraisal agents? A whites-only restriction. Basically, the FHA, as well as other mortgage insurers, had determined that black homebuyers were too risky. St. Louis was further segregated not by explicit laws and regulations, but by private residential agreements. The Supreme Court had outlawed racially restrictive ordinances in 1917, meaning cities couldn't overtly bar black people from living in white neighborhoods and vice versa. But that's never stopped racists, has it? Now, they had many other ways of ensuring that neighborhoods remained segregated. One way was by adding what are called restrictive covenants to their deeds when building and selling houses. You learn about restrictive covenants in the first year of your property law class in law school. They are rules that the owner of a property can impose on subsequent owners. Sometimes they're pretty innocuous, like no subsequent owners of this property can plant apple trees anywhere on said property. Those are usually perfectly legal. But racists got clever at the beginning of the 20th century and started adding restrictive covenants to their deeds that said things like, and I quote, "The real property above described, or any portion thereof, shall never be occupied, used, or resided on by any person not of the white or Caucasian race, except in the capacity of a servant or domestic employed thereon as such by a white Caucasian owner, tenant, or occupant." Through the use of these restrictive covenants, owners were able to ensure that subsequent buyers of their property would always be white. Not only that, but the commission permitted taverns, liquor stores, nightclubs, and houses of prostitution to open in African American neighborhoods, but prohibited them in white neighborhoods. They also allowed for the subdivision of properties located in black neighborhoods, but not in white neighborhoods. And in this atmosphere, with black would-be homeowners completely barred from purchasing most homes, black homeowners were pushed into industrial-zoned, polluted locations littered with strip malls and liquor stores. And because they couldn't obtain FHA-insured loans to buy the few homes available to them, they often had to rent out rooms or live together with family members and overcrowd what little housing was available to them. And when those houses inevitably began to break down from overuse, they didn't have the funds to repair the houses, leading to the perception that black people degrade the value of neighborhoods, when in fact, they were simply surviving in the squalor that white supremacy made for them. In some cases, these predatory real estate agents would hire black women to push babies in prams down the streets of white neighborhoods, or pay black men to roll down the streets of white neighborhoods blasting music out of their car speakers. The real estate agents would then come through and warn of deflating property values and black encroachment, and this led to white panic, and white people would then sell their homes to these real estate agents at deflated prices, who would then turn around and sell the houses back to black buyers at inflated prices, pocketing the difference.
There are some things you see and you're like, so really, people sit down to think of all this, like, how do I make these people, like, how do I render everything about them, like, make everything about them really so bad? Because I don't see how somebody will sit down and be planning all this for another person. I mean, come on. I mean, the hate has been there right from the onset. Like, it's glaring, it's obvious. I mean, if someone can go this length, I mean, there is nothing they cannot do. There is nothing these people cannot do. They can literally do everything. Because I have seen it all. Like, what is this? What is this? The liquor stores, they are I don't want to call this, like, clubs and all that were intentionally set up in black community in order to take their money away. Because if not, it is only evil, it's only an evil person that can, like, sit back and think something like this and then put it into work. Because if it is not, if you are not evil and jealousy, I mean, you won't even be bothered about how other people are doing, how great or how well they are doing for themselves. But because you do not even want them to prosper, those people that give you right and look for a way to strip that right from you. This is it. This is it. Because it is evil. I mean, it is all evil. And then they started using black people against, they used black people, probably black person playing loud music, in order to chase white people away, and then sell the house, buy the houses from white people, maybe on a cheap rate, and sell it at a very high rate to black people. I mean, there is nothing, I mean, that when they say, whatever people show you, I mean, do not make excuses for them. Just believe them. Because making excuses for them is just like you, like, wanting to, like, do yourself bad. Just believe them. And I have believed, like, because if not, what did I just watch? What did I just watch? This is where I don't even know how I found this. I do not know how I found this. But man, I am glad that I found it. This is where I'm going to draw the curtain. Thank you so much for all the love and support. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.